Thank you everybody for turning out on a rather sticky summer's day for our Wednesday webinar. My name is Adrian Sell. I'm Chief Executive of Oxfordshire Community Foundation. And it's a real honor to host these webinars, and in particular today because of the distinguished speakers we have and because of the subject matter. So we will be, as you probably know, looking at the experience over the last year and celebrating some of the heroes and some of the great deeds that people have carried out through that time. And there are very many of those, but there is of course a tinge of sadness with some of that, with some of the losses and bereavements many people have experienced. So that will be in our thoughts as well as we go through the session. As I said previously, if you can, make sure you're muted. And if you're able to change your display name to include your organisation name, that helps us keep tabs on who's attended. And the webinar is being recorded and will be made available later. So if you know people who want to hear the session today or sections of it, then please do point them to our website and they will be able to access it probably quite soon in the future. As ever with Zoom, there is a chat box. Please do use that to post questions or comment on the presentations as we're going along, or just to introduce yourself and say hello. And before we go over to the main speakers, I've got a few updates from OCF I just wanted to share with you. So Kate, do you want to pop the slides up? That is today's webinar title, Celebrating the Heroes of Oxfordshire. If you haven't been to South Park, there's a great display there at the moment, by the way, of Oxfordshire heroes through the pandemic. Well worth a look. So first, just to let you know that there's a few changes happening around the governance of Oxfordshire Community Foundation. Firstly, we're very sadly saying goodbye to Glyn Benson, who's been a trustee for 17 years and has been hugely active in the community grants panel and connecting in with local community groups and ensuring that we have a good understanding of the realities of life locally. So we want to say thank you very much to Glyn for all her work over the years, and we will miss you greatly. A couple of new arrivals on the top line there. The Bishop of Oxford is joining us as a Vice President, and we've already had a couple of meetings with church representatives to talk about how we can connect better through church communities to understand the community needs and help support those needs more effectively. And then probably most significant for me, because Ian Busby is joining us as chair and will therefore effectively be my boss, or is effectively my boss now. He started 21 days ago. So a very warm welcome to Ian, and I look forward to working with him in the coming months. And if you want to say hello, then do reach out. We also have 4 new trustees joining us, and I'm delighted that Monawar, one of our speakers today, is one of those trustees, and then the 3 others there you can see before you. They will be being inducted and stepping into roles in the coming weeks, and I very much look forward to working with all of them. Also a quick trailer. We will be publishing in the quite near future a journal of the pandemic year, which the team have been working on, which is trying to put together a summary of the amazing work that's been carried out by community groups that we're very proud to have been supporting. And as you can see, we've paid out over £1 million in grants over the last year. That's gone up recently with over 150,000 going out in the homelessness round we held recently, and will be going up again as the Children and Families panel, community grants panel, were meeting earlier on today after that very heavily subscribed round closed a couple of weeks ago. So we're continuing to support the pandemic response and try and help organisations and communities recover from what's been an incredibly testing time. Then finally, moving on to our speakers for today. We are spotlighting Oxfordshire's heroes, and as many of you know, Monawar Hussain, who is our High Sheriff, who is an Imam, is very keen to be celebrating local heroes. And so we've been talking to him about some of the people who have been nominated for High Sheriff's Awards, and are showcasing a couple of those people here today. But before we come to them, Monawar's going to talk about some of his experiences over the last year or so. The nominations we're going to feature, where we've got a short introduction from the nominator, and then we'll hear from the person nominated. So first we'll hear from Councillor Mike Rowley, who's nominated Sue Holden of Barton Community Association. And then we'll be hearing from Debbie Hollingsworth, who's nominated Hadi Nouri at Searcox. And then finally, we're going to hear from Sophie Law, who many of you will know from BBC Radio Oxford, and she's going to be talking about why and how she's been supporting some of the work that's been going on to celebrate Oxfordshire's heroes. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Monawar Hussain. I think it's one of the many marks of the man that, despite his plethora of titles, most people simply know him as Monawar. So I would like to say Eid Mubarak, Monawar, and many thanks for allowing us to intrude on your celebrations, and over to you to talk about your last year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Adrian, to you and to the team for all the work that you've done really to set this up. And thank you everyone for joining us. It's a lovely day, and of course Eid Mubarak. It's a great day of celebration. Actually, we have 3 days of celebration, and it's really really good to be with you. I do want to also do a shout out to Sophie for all her support and help that she's given me in kind of celebrating Oxfordshire's heroes. And I suppose my sort of first question really is, well, why Oxfordshire heroes? And I just want to share my own kind of inspiration, I suppose, for the reason I chose this theme rather not some other. I think over the last year and a half, it's been a really difficult year. It's been a tough year. Personally, I've lost a number of friends here in Oxfordshire, but also beyond here, close relatives as well. But above that, it's been a tough year as the Muslim chaplain at Oxford University Hospitals. And really, it was my colleagues in the intensive care unit who, day in, day out, wearing PPE, just kind of demonstrated such love and compassion and that sense of commitment and duty to serving and caring for patients. And I just I mean, I've been in sort of working remotely, so often it's been a link that's come through on my phone, and so I just press that and I can see the patients and be with them or their families and talk to them. But the real heroes were the colleagues in intensive care. And I thought to myself, I really want to kind of spend my year celebrating and thanking people who've gone beyond and above their call of duty, as it were. And my second inspiration related to this was helping my 7.5-year-olds doing schoolwork. And surprise, surprise, the book was Superheroes. And these were just ordinary folk, the postman, people collecting sort of, rubbish in bins and stuff like that, delivery people, and of course, doctors, nurses, fire officers, police officers. And I thought, something, each time in those really difficult time through the pandemic, each one of those people put themselves at risk to keep our county in motion, keep our county going. And really, they are the unsung heroes. They are, for me, the superheroes. And so they were the two kind of big inspirations for me. And I just thought, simple, just easy. I just want to spend my year just saying thank you very much. So thank you to Hardy, thank you to Sue, thank you to every single person in our county and beyond who's really served our community and their neighborhoods, their people who are vulnerable. Just when the pandemic, the lockdown started last year in March, one of our neighbors just dropped a leaflet off through the letterbox just to say, if you're vulnerable, if you're self-isolating, please just give us a buzz. Or if you want to volunteer, you want to help, please put your name down. And so that was just a first sense of people just taking real sense of responsibility, a sense of caring for their local communities. And there have been so many people and so many new voluntary groups that have emerged in our county who really all deserve a thank you. So I suppose, Adrian, that's really the kind of where the inspiration for me comes from. So there are, first-hand experiences of things that most ordinary folk will probably not experience and see, because every time a phone's rung, it's been end of life. It's been someone who's going to pass away. And, and that's just been constant. So, for my colleagues in the chaplaincy, to all my colleagues in the Oxfordshire University hospitals, but, clinical commissioning group, there's Oxford Health, there's loads and loads of heroes in our county who've just been serving people. And so, for me, the, my mantra and all I want to do in my year is just say thank you. And for me, that's, if I can do that in my year, that's it. And I'm very happy to do that. We've had about 60 nominations so far. We had our meeting last week. Sophie is she's on our judging panel. So are you, Adrian. And so is someone who's a huge support for me as the High Sheriff, is the Under Sheriff, Michael Payne, who I'm so pleased is joining us. He's also on the judging panel. And so we've kind of, we know roughly who has been successful in terms of their nominations. And I hope the next week I can write to all of those who've been successful. That's not to say, and I think this is really important, it's not to say that the other nominees somehow, have made a lesser contribution. It's just that the paperwork that we have to judge by the information that we have in front of us. And so those who might not be successful this time round, I would encourage them to resubmit, but give us a bit more information of what they might have done, give us some examples, and do resubmit, because as I say, this is just the first round. I think we will have a ceremony on the 22nd of September, and then the nomination process will continue. And I want to visit people, want to sort of go and just say thank you personally to many people who've won and who I hope will also be resubmitting or new submissions, which are still coming through. So I'm really pleased, and that's all really come about through your help here, Adrian. But so many other voluntary groups have kind of shared and tweeted the details about the Celebrating Oxfordshire theme. And so it hasn't just been myself, it hasn't been just one or two people. And that's what really makes me proud, that this has been an effort, a sort of county-wide effort, really, to reach out many different communities and many different areas in our county to try and make sure there's a good spread of heroes from across the county. And we're going to continue doing that for the rest of my year.
Thank you, Monawar. I mean, I think it's you're paying tribute to everyone else. I think we should take a moment to pay tribute to you and the energy and the warmth you bring to the role, which I think is incredibly valuable and really uplifting for people, and picks up on the wonderful work. I know Amanda is in the room somewhere, that Amanda was doing last year as High Sheriff, and I think that sense of helping raise people's morale, helping people realise that what they're doing is valued is so important at times like this. So thank you for all of that, and I'm sure there will be questions that people will come back to you with, so we will pick up on those in due course. So the first nominee we're going to hear about is Sue Holden at Barton Community Association, and I'd heard quite a lot about Sue before actually meeting her, not yet in person, I'm afraid to say, but hopefully in due course we'll do so. The nomination has been made by Councillor Mike Rowley, who, in common with all the nominators, I suspect has probably done a huge amount of good work over the last year himself. So I think Kate has a short video from Mike about why he wanted to nominate Sue Holden, and just be aware that this was recorded on the hottest day of the year, which explains why he's just wearing a vest.
So go ahead, tell us why you nominated Sue for High Sheriff's Award. Well, Sue's always been a pillar of the Barton community, but during the pandemic, she's really excelled herself in the worst period of it. Although she's retired and she was isolating herself, she was working until 11 o'clock at night at home, some days, coordinating the delivery of food to 200 vulnerable people and families, coordinating volunteers for the vaccination clinics at Barton Neighbourhood Centre, making sure that we used the neighbourhood centre for the vaccination clinics, for some nurses training for the hospital, and the Barton community. The Barton community has actually grown stronger during this pandemic, despite the fact that so many people have been physically isolated from each other. And although there's a lot of people who are responsible for that, Sue has been at the centre of it, and the work she's done has just been brilliant.
Thank you in absentia to Mike, who can't be here today. I think it's his birthday and he's celebrating with his family, so that's an understandable excuse. But Sue, if you'd like to unmute yourself. I don't know, before we go on to the first question, is there any reactions to what Mike said that you want to share there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I want to say to everybody is that I see myself as a very small branch and being part of a very big tree, because everything that we've achieved in Barton and beyond has only been made possible because of the staff and the volunteers that I've been so very, very lucky to work with. So I just feel, you know, this nomination is not just for me, but it's for the whole of the team, because one person doesn't do it on their own.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And can you tell us how you identified the needs in Barton and what you did to help coordinate and underpin the work that happened there across the team that you refer to?
Well, right from the first day of lockdown, we knew that our local families would need our help and support, whether they were shielding, whether they were self-isolating, whether they were on furlough, whether they were attempting homeschooling for the first time ever. And we reacted very, very quickly. And what was lovely was I didn't actually have to go out there and ask people to support and help us, you know, in the voluntary sector. They were there, they were on the doorstep, they were phoning up saying, what can we do to help? And within a couple of days, my kitchen looked like Churchill's war rooms, because it was just everywhere was blue tack, post-it notes, messages, telephone numbers, absolutely everywhere. We very, very quickly joined up with Sophia, and we started delivering food boxes within a couple of days of the lockdown, and that continued then right through to the end of August. Throughout that period, we delivered to people between Barton and Marston, Rosehill and Northway, Headington, Littlemore, absolutely right across the Eastern Arc. And at our peak, we were delivering in excess of 300 boxes, together with fruit and veg packs for families and individuals who really needed that extra bit of support. But we always had a system in place so that if there was an emergency, we would react to it immediately. And if we heard of a family who needed help, we would be on their doorstep with a food box, with toys for the children, picking up prescriptions for them within the hour of getting the call from, whether it be family support, whether it be social services, schools, local authority, whoever it was. We were able to respond within, as I say, within the hour, which was absolutely fantastic. And then and in between doing that, we also managed to get a delivery from Blenheim Palace twice a week with their beautiful meals. And we decided that the best people to receive these were the people that were socially isolated, living on their own, mostly elderly, And it wasn't just about delivering that meal to them twice a week. It was about them having some interaction with another human being, because for some of those people, the chap who delivered their meals was the only person they saw from one week to the next. So for me, that was a really, really important programme that we ran along, and that lasted well into, I think it's sort of mid-August. We managed to get the meals from Blenheim Palace out of them. That was really, really good. In a moment of madness, in May, we looked at our young children. We knew that a proportion of them were not having any homeschooling, they weren't attending school. And in fact, for many of our young children, they didn't actually have any education, formal education, between March and September. So we decided, right, we'll do a summer school. You know, you make these mad things come to fruition, but we sat there and thought, yeah, we said we'll do it, but how do we do it? We haven't got the skills, we haven't got the capacity. But we were so lucky that we managed to attract enough funding that we were able to then employ professional teaching staff, along with a wonderful tranche of volunteers who came along and helped us with the summer school. And although the summer school was based on education, we also wanted to bring back in the 4 things into the children's lives, which are structure, focus, discipline, and respect. And that was exactly the message that we put across through the summer school, because, like I say, these children had those things missing out of their lives since March, and year 6s were going to transition through to secondary school. They were feeling quite anxious. But having run the school for 4 weeks, I think, and I know that we did make a difference to those children's lives. And as I say, I can only thank all the funders that made that possible. Once the food boxes finished in August, we then decided to embark on a community larder. Now, this is a model that we've really embraced, and we absolutely love the community larder model, because for us, we see it as helping our community to break down that cycle of dependency that's been created, and it's going from strength to strength. So the services that are available through the community larder are expanding day on day. So we're really, really happy with the way the larder's going. That continues to be so. A couple of months ago, we looked and decided we wanted to make the larder more of a social environment. So we've opened up our Larda Cafe, which operates every Tuesday. It's free of charge, so people don't have to pay for their homemade cakes that the volunteers produce endlessly each week. So it's created this lovely, lovely atmosphere. And, you know, if people just come and shop, you can do that by going to the supermarket. We want to make the larder feel more, you know, bringing in people that have been isolated. And it's fantastic because we're seeing old friendships renewed, we're seeing new friendships being made. So it's a lot more than shopping. So then in December, I had a very casual conversation with one of the doctors in the local GP surgery. And I said, you know what, wouldn't it be great if we could do a vaccine clinic here? And he went, well, it probably won't happen because you're not a medical centre. And I said, yeah, but you know, we've got the venue, let's try it. So that led to lots of conversations with the public health, CCG, etc. And we held our first clinic on the, I think it's 18th or 19th of December. And we were the first non-medical venue to roll out with the vaccines. Those clinics still continue every week. We make sure that we've got the volunteers there to support the medical staff, to help direct people where to go, see to them when they faint and pass out, you know, sit with them for their 15 minutes if they've had the Pfizer vaccine. So yeah, that's been a really, really good thing that we've been able to contribute and host, and we feel very proud of that. And then alongside all of that, we welcomed the John Radcliffe into the building last October. They came along and said, did we have a room they could use? They ended up almost taking over the building, but hey ho, that doesn't matter. They were doing some really good work. They'd lost their training venue. And so they came along and said, oh, can we have one for manhandling? So our community hall now represents a hospital ward and 2 rooms upstairs that are being used for trainees to take their exams, etc., etc. So for me, it's just been a year where we thought we would achieve absolutely nothing, but ended up achieving far more than we would have ever expected.
Sounds incredible, Sue. I mean, really, how you catalysed all that and made all that happen, I think was just really powerfully encapsulated in that response there, and the breadth of grounds you've covered is phenomenal. So thank you for that. Now, obviously, we're at a time where, you know, there's some very great positives like the vaccines you referred to, but there's still worryingly high levels of infection in the community. I'm just worried about wondering about, you know, how things are in Barton now and what your ambitions are for the future.
Yeah, obviously we're taking the steady Eddie approach. So, you know, we won't be flinging the doors open anytime soon. We are allowing limited activities to take place, but in a very controlled environment. We will be hosting a summer school again in August, alongside lots of other activities. I think that's essential for the local families to have somewhere for their children to go. But generally speaking, we'll continue doing what we're doing. We will be there when our families need us. We want to expand all the services that are available through the community Larda. You know, anybody that wants to come along and sort of, I say, sell their wares, you know, City Council finds it a fantastic forum for them to speak to their tenants in a sort of laid back, informal way. So we will just be opening the doors to anybody that wants to come along. If anybody wants to visit us, please feel free to come along and see what we do. And in general, we will continue to try and improve the quality of life for everybody who lives and works in Barton. Fantastic.
Thank you so much for talking to us. Please do stick around, because I can see the chat box is going crazy, so we'll come back to that at some point. Thank you. Sue. Right, Debbie Hollingsworth of Connection Support. Could you unmute yourself and if you want to introduce yourself quickly and tell us about why it is you've nominated Hadi?
Yeah, so I'm the team manager for the Syrian, what was the Syrian Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme, now known as the UK Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme. So I think by Hadi's face, he's probably worried witless about what I'm going to say, but it's going to be all good, Hadi, I promise you. So I think I scare him sometimes. So, I mean, I've known Hadi for a number of years, and he started with Connection as a volunteer on this particular service, but he obviously impressed everybody with his passion and commitment around supporting the families, because he was offered, you know, a paid role as a support worker, and he's been doing that for a fair while now. Hadi really works hard to sort of empower the families so that they can live independently once their 5-year support ends from the local authority via us at Connection. And this year, you know, has been no different. As a team, we've continued to support our families with frontline interaction, obviously following all the guidelines. And we've actually been fortunate enough to have 4 new families arrive to Cherwell since January. And Hadi's been on that piece of work in Cherwell, and he's never questioned the need to ensure that they've settled in safely and have everything they need, and, you know, that we slowly get them, you know, into their new life at a much slower pace than our previous families. So, you know, he's really worked hard there. But it doesn't stop there, and I'm very conscious that for Hadi, involving the families as a community, but also involving them in the wider community, you know, community inclusion was really important. And I think that was a lot of why CIRCOPS was set up, and it's grown significantly over the years. He's built up a really strong group, which is now highly valued and respected within Oxfordshire, and it offers extensive support and resources to the families. But what's really impressed me is that Hadi and the group have worked tirelessly during the pandemic to support the wider community with weekly food parcels, helping at the COVID vaccine centres, and just being there, offering advice, guidance, things to keep people entertained and amused when they've been able to. He's kept this group going under really difficult circumstances with a strong group alongside him, but it's evident that it's his personality and encouraging nature that had a lot to do with this. And
Thank you,
I think, can I just add something relevant? Sorry, this wider community work is really significant because Hadi didn't have it easy after his family arrived in Oxford, and there was a lot of pressure for the family to locate out of area. And if it hadn't been for his strength of character to remain in Oxford, this would have been a whole different story, and we wouldn't have a Hadi here who set up this fantastic group and who is working for Connection Support. So well done, Hadi.
Thank you, Debbie. Really powerful tribute. Hadi, do you want to respond to that before we move on to the questions?
I'm really speechless about this. I would thank everyone for this nomination, and I don't know how to thank Debbie about this great words she said to me. What I did and I'm doing to support not just my community, supporting the whole community, to show everyone that all together we can work together to support each other.
Wonderful. So can you tell us, we're really interested to know why you decided to mobilize the Syrian community to help others, and so give us a flavor of what you've been doing over the last year.
To be honest, I found Syrian community CIRCOPS to be a platform to help OTAs the Syrian conflict, impact of Syrian conflict on Syrian refugees, and also to help them to integrate well in the new society. We use this CIRCOPS to show people that the positive side of the refugees, and they are here to support the community, integrate and make something different to the community. In March 2020, I felt that we have that duty to support the community that welcomed us and supported us, and make something to support people in need. So in April 2020, with my volunteers, we supported many people around the Oxfordshire county by providing a lot of different supports, like from activities and advices, and also emergency food parcels. From April until now, we managed to support around 2,000 people, and we every week supporting people with food parcel. And from April until now, we managed to provide around 19,000 food parcels to many people around the county. Also, we managed to provide kind of food delivery to many people around the county. So we reach people who live far away in the county. An example, Banbury, Whitney, and Vintage. So we're supporting many, including Oxford City. So we're supporting many people from different backgrounds. And to be honest, we have a lot of emotional stories here from our beneficiaries. An example, one of our beneficiaries, when I give her a food parcel and food voucher, she is an English single lady. She told me 6 months during the pandemic, nobody from my skin knock my door to support me, and you from refugee background knock my door supporting me. So we are here to work together to support everyone, and not just standing by ourselves. It's our duty to be part of this community.
Wonderful, thank you. And similarly to the question asked Sue, I mean, how are things now within the Syrian community and the communities you're supporting, and how do you see the work developing and evolving in the future?
Yeah, we are aiming to continue this service to support many people, and also we step forward to provide extra support, like some activities to encourage people to go out and rebuild their confidence to meet people outside, and to give them the opportunity to go back to their normal life. And I need to use this opportunity also to thank all our volunteers' contribution to this initiative, because without them we can't do anything.
Wonderful, thank you, Hadi. I mean, again, it's incredible what motivated people with some volunteers and time and goodwill can do, and thank you so much for all the work you've done over the last year. So finally, Sophie, I feel like I'm turning the tables here on someone who normally interviews other people. But thank you for joining us, and I'd be really, I mean, if you want to introduce yourself first to those who don't know who you are, and then tell us a bit about why you wanted to work with Monawar on this initiative.
Sure. So I co-host the breakfast show on BBC Radio Oxford, and I present Saturday Breakfast. And one of the things that we've been doing since the beginning of the pandemic is a campaign called Make a Difference, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It highlights and shines a light on people, exactly like we've been hearing about today. People going the extra mile, from the tiniest little things, like someone who did just one good deed at a shop someday, to people like Hadi and Sue who have really gone above and beyond. So as soon as we heard this was happening, my editor said, "Oh, this just sounds exactly like something we should be involved in, because it just continues that campaign forward, and I can't see us stopping that campaign anytime soon." We do a whole hour every Saturday morning on my show, 9 till 10, where we just celebrate people in Oxfordshire doing things for other people. It's really lovely. It's really positive. It's such a great thing to listen to, I think. I'm biased because it's such positive energy, and there's been so much negativity and bad news. And I read the news as well. And man alive, it has been tough to read the news at points this year, because it's just felt so dark and just with no hope at all. And that has felt like a really difficult position to be in, when you turn up at work and know that you want to try and lift people and entertain them for 4 hours. So this was like a really simple, positive way to do that. And just to also shine the spotlight on, we were saying the other day, people are very easy to complain, and you might not necessarily as quickly go back and take time to leave some positive feedback or something like that. So this seemed like a really good way. Unsung hero feels like a very overused term at the moment, but you just heard from both Sue and Hadi that they're like, "Oh no, it's not me, it's everybody else." No, it's not everyone else. It's you. This is why you've been nominated. Just to celebrate these people who maybe don't see in themselves what everybody else sees in them, I think is a fabulous opportunity to take up. And I never say no to Monawar, to be fair. He's got me around his little finger, so.
I think you're not alone in that.
Sophie has been a huge support, and so is BBC Oxford. Actually, we're very lucky to have you locally and supporting us. So, but no, thank you ever so much, Sophie.
You're welcome. It's felt really important this year. Quite often we have a laugh and say, my mum will say, "I just talk for a living," which I do. But it's really felt. We've had people this year, I had a message just after Christmas from a lady called Margaret who lost her husband of something like 60 or 65 years. And she said she basically gets up in the morning and puts the radio on all over the house and she turns it off when she goes to bed at night, and that's kept her going through the points where, you know, she couldn't see anybody else, and that's felt really important to keep people company, to try and lift them up and give them the resolution to go on for another day. And I think actually other people's inspiring stories is a really great way to do that, because it shows, you know, what else is being achieved out there, and it gives you a bit of sort of spring in your step and hope in your heart, and hope is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, and I know you do a big job on that with your show, and I think that's massively appreciated. And I mean, we met last week with Monawar and talked through the nomination.
We argued.
We didn't argue too much, I don't think.
No, we didn't.
What most inspired you when you read through those nominations, and any highlights? I mean, people we haven't heard today.
I mean, I think the individual deeds, so the people who weren't part of a big organisation, who really just powered their community on their own, were really impressive, particularly when you're also holding down a job, or you have a family, or there's something else going on, you know, in your life. I think that's incredible. But also I think, you know, people like Hadi who are there's like a multifaceted side to what they're doing. So they're not just helping the community, and they're not just giving a community, you know, joining the community together. They're breaking down barriers, they're changing perceptions, they're combating racism or, you know, assumptions, and doing so many layers, like a big gatto of positive. It's not just delivering food, it's not just this, there's so many layers to a lot of the entries that we had in, which I think was just incredible.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Now, I haven't even looked at the chat box, but I can see there's been 20 messages. Kate, is there anything, or where do you want to start with all of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much love for these people, and congratulations to them, and people saying how powerful their stories are. And then that's most of what we've got in the chat there. So a couple of specific questions. One for Sue was about whether this volunteering initiative in Barton has seen more people step forward to volunteer.
Oh, absolutely. Amongst our volunteers, we had a very high percentage of people who'd never volunteered before. This was their very first experience at doing something for their community. And I think when you volunteer, it's not just about what you give, it's what you get back from it. And so I think, you know, for the volunteers themselves, they've achieved something, they've gained something, it's given them another skill. And yeah, so it's very much a two-way thing, but I just love the fact that we've had so many new volunteers come forward. And like I said, as horrible as the pandemic has been, there's actually been a lot of good come out of it in a strange sort of way, and people identifying their communities, embracing their communities and wanting to do for their communities and bring forward new community values. So yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the silver lining of what's been an incredibly hard 15 months for everybody. So it's just wonderful to hear that up close personal story from Barton.
I wonder if we could ask Hadi that question as well. Actually, what have the volunteers got out of it as part of this initiative?
To be honest, very important that some volunteers from our community involved with this initiative, supporting many people around the county, encourage them to be part of it. This change their understanding of the meaning of working as a volunteer to support people, and also showing other people the importance of the community work, supporting the community or anything during any crisis. So it's kind of very encouraging people to work with us. In the beginning, a few people supported us. But then when people notice the importance of the work we are doing, they involve with us and supporting us a lot. And so many volunteers involved with us.
And Hadi, can I ask, do your volunteers just come from the Syrian community, or do you now recruit more broadly?
Volunteers from different communities, to be honest. the majority of them from the Syrian community, but also we have volunteers from Iraqi community, from Kurdish community, from English community as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Monawar, can I ask you, you've said people are welcome to still nominate for the future, and I'm sure everyone here will know people who have gone well above and beyond over the last year or so. How do people make nominations?
There's an online form, and I'll try and put the link up, but I'm sure, I think, Kate, you might have that link too.
Yeah, we can put that in the email that goes out to everybody after this with the recording. We can send the link as well to the nomination form. Yeah.
It's a very simple form I designed. It's an online form. And it's really just simply finding out about individuals, voluntary groups, and you know, what we want to say is some detail, just to make sure they kind of reach that high bar of the High Sheriff's Awards. But, you know, all of this has been so inspirational. And, you know, sometimes you kind of forget, you know, news is always kind of negative in a sense, isn't it? And we kind of forget the compassion and the love that's in so many people's hearts. And that's what makes our country and our county great, is we, you know, I mean, some years back, God, it's a long time ago now, and I didn't have my grey hair then. I was a commissioner on the commission of the Future Volunteering, one of the biggest commissions for England. And, you know, what struck me was how many people volunteer. There are so many people who volunteer. So there's a kind of already a bank of people who volunteer, give their time into their local communities. And I think we've had a flowering of that at a really dark moment in our lives. You know, we've had a flowering of that goodness come forth. And I just hope that we can galvanize that, continue with that, because it's hard of our, you know, all the things are hard and sad. I mean, it doesn't matter what color people are, you know, what ethnicity, religion, whatever. The key thing is that we all belong to the same community, and that when we all feel we have a stake in the community, we work harder to ensure that everyone flourishes, and that the community we build is one in which everyone's respected and loved, and we look out for those who are vulnerable, who need our support, and so on. So I think it's just, yeah, you know, as Sue said, it's been a really difficult time, but there's been such a wonderful flowering of voluntarism and people just you know, really looking out for those in need and vulnerable. And you know, all of this is so inspiring, and so and this is just the tip of the iceberg, as it were, because hopefully next week, you know, when we publish our sort of the successful nominees list, I think we'll have more heroes to share. And Sophie, we will keep you busy on those Saturdays.
Just going to say oxford@bbc.co.uk as well. If there's anyone who you think people might be brave enough to come and speak on the radio with me about it, that would be amazing.
Wonderful. Well, we're slightly ahead of time, but I'm actually going to close it there, because I don't think there's any better words that we can have by way of closure than what Monawar just shared with us. Thank you everyone for making the time for what's been a really powerful and moving session. So thank you Monawar. Thank you, Mike Rowley, who's not with us, but thank you for his contribution. Thank you, Sue, for everything you're doing in Barton. Thank you, Hadi, for all the work you're doing, and thank you, Debbie, for the nomination for Hadi and the powerful words you introduced him with, and thank you, Sophie, for raising everyone's spirits through your work on Radio Oxford. We will be back on Wednesday the 25th of August, looking at understanding additional needs before, during and after COVID. I'm sure it will be a very interesting session. In the meantime, please do reach out if you want to talk at further length, but thank you everyone for making the time on a hot afternoon for what's been a really powerful and moving session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian and the team. You know, giving 1 million plus to voluntary groups in the county is just a massive achievement. So well done for all your hard work too.
I'm proud that we're able to do that.